Here's a premium product from a very mainstream brand. Vauxhall's Cascada is a proper 4-seat convertible that would really worry the premium makers were it not for issues of badge equity. For those prepared to look beyond that, this car offers luxury cabriolet motoring and head-turning good looks without the usual lottery winner's price tag. It's surprisingly desirable. If you've ever owned an affordably priced convertible, then you'll know that cars of this kind come with one major problem. You can't comfortably fit adult passengers in the back over any real distance. That's because models of this sort are largely based on Focus-size family hatchbacks that are compact to start with and become even more so at the rear once you have to find space for a bulky hood. Cabriolets based on larger, more prestigious designs do better, but they're expensive. You'd think then that there'd be a gap in the market here, and you'd be right. Here's the car that fills it, Vauxhall's Cascada. This, the Griffin brand is at pains to emphasise, is a significantly bigger proposition than the small convertibles it's directly priced against, cars like the Volkswagen Golf Cabriolet and the Peugeot 308cc. Sure enough, there's a wheelbase closely matched to Vauxhall's large medium-range Insignia model and a body length that actually exceeds that of an Audi A5 Cabriolet from the next class up, a far pricier drop top that the marketeers behind this car would like to think was a credible rival. That's asking a lot, given that almost anyone spending any kind of serious money on a convertible tends to value badge equity just as highly as the style and substance of the car itself. Vauxhall, though, is undaunted, and exactly as they did with their classic Prince Henry and 3098 models of the 20s and 30s, they have in this Cascada bought us a pretty and practical convertible that's not only exceptionally affordable for its size, but really is desirable. A car that challenges preconceptions of size and status in its market, and a car that here we're going to put to the test. Now, from the moment that you take a seat and set off in this car, it's clear that this is a luxury convertible first and foremost, rather than any kind of low-slung roadster. But that doesn't mean that it can't be dynamically adept. Indeed, it must be if Vauxhall's pretensions of tilting at the upmarket German brands are to be credibly realised. That's why the spec sheet promises hyper-strut suspension from the 170 miles an hour Insignia VXR and the FlexRide adaptive damping system that does so much to make the brand's Astra VXR such a credibly competitive hot hatch. Here, though, this technology is there to dynamically improve a very different kind of car, over 2 tons in weight and lacking the kind of fixed roof that would normally be key to structural rigidity. It could have all produced a rather disastrous result had this Cascada simply been a convertible spin-off from an ordinary Vauxhall hatch, as was its direct Astra twin-top predecessor. But it isn't. This, in contrast, is the first time the brand has properly designed and purpose-built an open-top car from scratch since the early 1930s. They've done the job properly. That's why the car has a properly engineered, massive, powered fabric hood of a kind I'm more used to seeing on a top Mercedes or Bentley, one that opens in just 17 seconds at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour. It's also why, top down, the car doesn't judder and shimmy over poor surfaces in the way that previous Astra drop tops of all kinds used to. Plus, it's why the ride quality, though slightly unsettled around town, is at cruising speeds arguably better than many cabriolets that will cost you twice as much, provided that you specify the optional FlexRide adaptive damping and set it to comfort-orientated tour mode via this button on the dash. In this, guys, you really could imagine yourself to be in a very expensive open-top car indeed. Of course, the Cascada isn't quite as comfortable when you want it to come over all sporty. Its sheer size and weight have to tell somewhere. Still, the overall experience through the twisties is no worse than it would be in, say, an Audi A5 Cabriolet, with the car responding quickly to inputs from the rather light steering. It also helps that the brakes are powerful, that grip is good, and that torque steer, that's that writhing of the wheel in your hands under hard acceleration, is well controlled thanks to the hyperstrut suspension. If you've fitted the FlexRide system, you can improve things further by selecting the Sport option that bathes the instruments with a red hue as it stiffens the suspension, weights up the steering and sharpens the throttle response. Under the bonnet, Vauxhall has wheeled out the best it has in terms of current engine technology, including an all-new 1.6 litre SIDI or spark injection direct injection petrol unit that offers 170 PS when mated to a 6-speed automatic gearbox, in which form 62 miles an hour is 9.2 seconds away en route to 135 miles an hour. If that's not fast enough, you can ask your dealer about a 200 PS manual gearbox version. But given that this isn't really a car in which you'd want to burn up the tarmac, I've opted here for a more leisurely means of Cascada conveyance, that fitted with the entry-level 140 PS 1.4 litre petrol turbo unit. With all that bulk to shift along, it isn't especially fast, of course. 62 miles an hour from rest takes 10.2 seconds on the way to 129 miles an hour. But it seems to suit the overall character of this car quite well. That won't be the most popular engine choice, though. Most sales instead likely to be accounted for by rumbly diesel power, something no potential buyer in this class would even have considered 20 years ago. Vauxhall expects the vast majority of browsers to finish their search with the 165 PS 2 litre CDTI variant, available either with manual or automatic transmission. With a stick shift, 62 miles an hour is 9.6 seconds away, and there's a 135 miles an hour maximum. Above this variant in the lineup sits a minority interest 195 PS bi-turbo version of the same engine, able to marginally improve those figures to 8.9 seconds and 143 miles an hour. The Cascada scores straight off the bat by looking the part. British designer Mark Adams set out to create a convertible with classic lines reminiscent of the Grande Routière or luxury touring cars of a bygone age. Many will feel that with this low, sleek design, he's done just that. It's certainly quite a size, at over 4.7 metres long and over 1.8 metres wide, larger than an Audi A5 cabriolet, let alone anything in the Volkswagen Golf size convertible class. When the top's down, it has a very clean profile with no rooftop cover or visible rollover protection disturbing the car's silhouette behind the steeply raked A-pillar. I always think, though, that the acid visual test of a car of this kind comes when you put the roof up, a process you commence either by pushing down on a chrome switch between the seats or by simply pressing a button on the key fob. The magnesium and aluminium mechanism then glides into life in 17 seconds, revealing a beautifully tailored fabric hood that can also be ordered with polyester fleece between its two layers for extra refinement. Most will feel it all infinitely preferable to the bulky, ponderous metal folding arrangement used by some competitors. When the hood's down, though, that inevitably takes a hit, the figure falling to 280 litres with a space that probably wouldn't accommodate a decently sized hard case. Still, that's more than you could expect from a cabrio in the Golf size class, and in any case it needn't necessarily be a problem if you're only travelling 2 up, thanks to Vauxhall's neat flex fold system, which electrically releases and folds down the 50-50 split fold rear seats with these 2 buttons to release as much as 750 litres of capacity, the same as you get in an Audi A5 cabriolet and over 50% more than you get in something Golf sized. At the wheel, where you sit quite high up, the cabin offers a mixture of Vauxhall familiarity, the kind of rather over-buttoned centre console you'll find in an Astra or an Insignia, with, in contrast, some handcrafted detailing you might not associate with this blue-collar brand. The belt buckler that extends over your shoulder and hands you your belt as you take your seat. The soft-to-the-touch, high-quality stitched instrument cluster that tops a wing-shaped panel flowing into the doors, and the range of embossed fabric and hide finishes that include this lovely Napa leather. Get yourself a car with the optional butterscotch coloured leather ventilated powered AGR sports seats and you'll feel very special indeed. All of which leaves what is probably this car's defining feature, its backseat accommodation. Now, access to the two individual rear seats is about as easy as it's ever going to be in a convertible, thanks to these long doors and an easy entry system that sees the front seats fold and slide with a single lever pull. And once in place, most adults should be quite comfortable, provided that they're not over 6 foot or sat behind particularly lanky front seat occupants. I won't pretend that you can really stretch out here or that I'd like to undertake a particularly lengthy journey, but it's all a world away from similarly priced compact convertibles where in most cases the back of the front seat tends to sit virtually against the rear seat's cushion. Looking at one of those Golf, Megane or Peugeot 308cc based family hatchback shaped convertibles, they're very nice, but it would surely be even better if you were able to stretch to something a little more upmarket that would have proper room for 2 adults in the back. An Audi A5 Cabriolet or a Volvo C70 for example. Maybe even a convertible BMW 3 Series, though that's pricier again. If that's the position you're in, then the Cascada is a car you should try. The kind of smart, stylish looks and decent rear seat space you'd expect to have to pay £30,000 to £40,000 for, all at the kind of £24,000 to £30,000 budget that you'd need to assign to the purchase of something much smaller like a Golf Cabriolet, a Renault Megane CC or a Peugeot 308cc. The only variant in the Cascada lineup that doesn't really echo these upmarket pretensions is the 1.4T petrol model that I have here. Its modest 140 PS being well below anything you'd find in a comparable Audi or a Volvo. Instead, it's a direct and more spacious competitor to family hatch drop tops like the Volkswagen Golf Cabriolet 1.4 TSI 122 PS or the Renault Megane CC 1.4 TCE 130 bhp. Those two would save you £1,000 or so. And the Peugeot 308cc 1.6 THP, that's about £1,800 pricier. If you want something a bit more upmarket than that, priced within striking distance of this car, then another potential direct rival for around £1,000 more would be the BMW 118i convertible. Further up the Cascada range though, you really can start to consider this car against much pricier executive rivals. The 1.6 SI-DI petrol auto model, for example, puts out exactly the same 170 PS as an Audi A5 Cabriolet 1.8 TFSI Multitronic and delivers a very similar overall package for around £7,000 less. It even manages to undercut a directly comparable petrol auto model from the family hatch drop-top class, the Volkswagen Golf 1.4 TSI 160 GT DSG, by around £700. And it'll save you well over £2,000 on another smarter rival, BMW's 120i convertible auto. And once you start to get into diesel Cascada territory, the comparisons suit Vauxhall very well indeed. The 165 PS 2-litre CDTI variant that most will want is pitched at just over £25,000, exactly like a smaller, more basically equipped Volkswagen Golf Cabriolet 2-litre TDI 140 or BMW 118D convertible, and within striking distance of the kind of Renault Megane CC 1.6 DCI 130 that fronts up with 20% less power. Direct executive proper 4-seat rivals to this particular Cascada, say the Audi A5 Cabriolet 2-litre TDI 143 PS or the Volvo C70 D3, are not only £7,000 to £8,000 pricier, but also significantly slower. At the top of the Cascada range is a 195 PS bi-turbo version of the 2-litre CDTI diesel that's far more powerful than virtually any family hatch-based diesel drop-top, so you really will need to compare this particular variant to a larger cabriolet with an upmarket badge on the bonnet. Given that this version of this Vauxhall is essentially a £30,000 car, you won't find the price reduction over comparable rivals, say Audi's A5 Cabriolet 2-litre TDI 177 PS or Volvo's C70 D4, quite as great, but you're still looking at saving £4,000 to £5,000. I'd say the base 2-litre diesel Cascada represents the sweet spot in the range though. You might even think about paying another £1,500 more to get this variant with a 6-speed auto gearbox if you really want to suit the laid-back nature of this car. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is something from the Cascada range that you really want, then you're going to need to be convinced that the value proposition includes a strong level of standard kit. And, by and large, it does. All models get the powered roof, all-round power windows, alloy wheels, daytime running lights and air conditioning you'd expect from a modern £25,000 convertible, and also include rear parking sensors, LED tail lights, sports front seats, cruise control, a leather covered steering wheel, a trip computer and a digital radio with USB and aux-in connectivity. Plusher versions like this one get heated seats with leather trim, front fog lamps and rain sensitive wipers, plus auto headlamps that can dip themselves at night. As for the options, well, specifying leather trim, heating, ventilation and power adjustment into the seats really does make this car feel upmarket. It's especially nice that the leather has been designed not to heat up in sunny weather. There's no neck-level heating system though, of the kind that some rivals offer to take the edge off cold mornings. If on those occasions you'll be more comfortable with the roof up, then you might want to try and stretch to the optional acoustic soft top roof, which adds a special layer of polyester fleece between the top layer and the interior lining, improving cabin refinement by up to 1/3. You'll also probably want the detachable windbreaker, which clips in to cover the area behind the front seats to reduce top-down turbulence for those times when you've no rear seat passengers. But even when you have, something can be done about this issue if you've specified the small mini windbreaker that can be mounted between the rear headrests. Careful colour choice will count too, matching paintwork with the 3 shades available for the fabric hood. There's a wide range of sat-nav and infotainment systems, and I'd also want to put some budget aside for the FlexRide active damping system that I have here, with its tour and sport settings that allow you to adjust the car for the mood you're in and the road you're on. Without this setup, you're not really experiencing the full dynamic capabilities of this car. As for safety, well, you don't get curtain airbags, but otherwise all the expected features are in evidence. Twin front and side bags, plus all the usual electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control. Like most designs of this kind, this one has active rollover protection with rollover bars that are triggered by the airbag sensors and spring out of this rear structure in less time than it takes to blink. There are also anti-whiplash seats and a pedal release system that detaches the pedals under impact to guard against foot and lower leg injuries. To go further than this requires a potentially expensive trawl through the options list. You might want to consider the adaptive front lighting system to better light your way through the bends at night, with up to 11 automatic settings to suit road and conditions. Then there's a front camera system that pictures speed limit signs as you pass and displays them on the dash. A lane departure warning system that stops dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. Side blind spot alert to stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. And a forward collision alert system that scans the road ahead as you drive for potential collision hazards. If one is detected, then you'll get an audible warning as the brakes are primed. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the brakes will be automatically applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. A larger car is inevitably a heavier car. So given that, unlike its family hatchback-shaped cabriolet counterparts, this Cascada has proper room for 4 and weighs over 2 tons, you'd expect running costs to be higher, which is not necessarily the case thanks to features like a start-stop system fitted across the range, which cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. And the results? Well, take the 1.4T 140 PS petrol variant I'm driving here, capable of 44.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 148 grams per kilometre of CO2. An almost identical set of figures to those returned by the smaller, less powerful Volkswagen Golf Cabriolet 1.4 TSI 122 PS, and actually a bit better than you'd get in a BMW 118i convertible for all its efficient dynamics. And you'll go around 5 more miles on every gallon and put out around 15% less CO2 than you would in rival models like Peugeot's 308cc 1.6 THP or Renault's Megane CC 1.4 TCE. Other Cascada variants don't fare quite as well as that. The 1.6 SIDI petrol auto, for example, manages 39.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 168 grams per kilometre of CO2. Figures a little behind those of the much pricier Audi A5 Cabriolet 1.8 TFSI Multitronic, as well as comparable versions of smaller ragtops like the Golf Cabriolet or the BMW 1 Series. Then there are the diesel versions of this Vauxhall, with both 165 and 195 PS versions of the 2-litre CDTI unit, delivering the same 54.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 138 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's quite a bit better than you get from a rival Peugeot 308cc 2-litre HDI or Volvo C70 D3, but not quite up to the level of either a BMW 118D or 120D convertible, or indeed the 2-litre TDI cabriolet versions of either the Audi A5 or the Volkswagen EOS and Golf models. What else? Well, like other Vauxhalls, this one comes with a lifetime warranty. It's valid for the life of the car, or up to 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. Though it isn't transferable onto second owners, so can't benefit residual values that, as you'd expect, won't be quite up to Audi or Volvo levels. But then, of course, you're paying a lot less upfront to start with. You'll also save money on insurance in comparison to prestige rivals. The Cascada is grouped between 20 and 27. These days, Vauxhall is a company with some genuinely desirable products in its portfolio. Here's one of them. In this Cascada, the brand looks to have virtually all the ingredients to guarantee success and the 10% market share it's seeking at the affordable end of the convertible segment. The design's good, the finish seems very polished, and it's got some solid engineering underneath the pretty lines. A perfect recipe, in fact, for buyers who previously enjoyed the old Vauxhall engineered Saab 9.3 convertible. Whether, though, this car can steal sales from today's prestigious makers in this notoriously badge-conscious sector is another thing, of course. At least the Griffin brand has given it every chance. It not only, as you'd expect, substantially undercuts rival models from Audi, Volvo and BMW on price, but it also provides what is in many ways a better all-round package into the bargain, one that includes more rear seat legroom and extra equipment. Some might even find this car to be better looking. If all that's not enough, then it's hard to see what more Vauxhall can do to win the hearts and minds of convertible buyers.